Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness. Business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve, Ramon, and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with the Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. I am so thrilled to have you join us today. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the idea of doing that business and living life with a purpose, serving others, yes, and achieving success. You can serve and win, and we'll show you how. My guest is going to talk to you about athletics, which I'm super excited about. And we believe that when we approach our work and our lives with a servant's heart, you can make a difference, and then we should all be trying to do that every day. And we created this show for you so everyone can be motivated, inspired, and educated to make an impact in your world. So take what my guest brings and bring it out to your world and make huge impacts out there. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur, community leader, or simply someone looking to bring more purpose into your daily life. This podcast is here to support you to help make that impact. And while you're listening to my incredible guests today, here's what I want you to think about: who you're going to serve today and how, and what impact are you going to create with that service today. Let's not wait till tomorrow, because tomorrow turns into a month turns into a year, and you look back and go, holy crap, I didn't serve yet. Do it today. Right after you listen to the show, go serve somebody, because you're going to want to, again, as you listen to my guest. And today's episode is proudly sponsored by our phenomenal partner, Pantheon Alliance. Imagine being part of an exclusive community of high-income, successful business owners and entrepreneurs from very diverse industries to grow your thought leader platform, become an expert, but most importantly, change the world and make an impact in the world. Become a thought leader, change the world. I think a lot of good things are going to happen with you. If you're interested, reach out to me and I'll get you all the information on Pantheon Alliance. With that being said, impact, as I talked about my monologue, I'm a big sports guy. I've worked with sports teams, and when I owned health clubs, some of you that know me back in the day, I'm big in athletics, and I think we need a lot of help in the athletic field, because these participation trophies, hard to say that, are coming into fruition, and they're okay. I'm just not a big fan. But let's talk about athletics. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me, what's your thought on winning in all, we hear all the time, win at all costs. How important is that phrase, and how true?
Yeah, I think that you have to define the win. You know what I mean? And it's great. I think it really comes down to me, as you talk about winning, it's a motivation thing, right? And so I know it might be a play on words for some people, but I really like to look at motivation as like, your motivation is those external drivers, the reward, the outcome, those types of things. And I think that those are wonderful. We need to have those in our life. But what I think really is the win is when you can identify and clarify your internal inspiration, and then you take action on that, right? And to your point, as you were starting this, talk about purpose, it's like I'm identifying the thing that is deep within me that I know will impact the world to be a better place. It will impact the team that I have around me to be better teammates and better at themselves at what they're pursuing. And I think that in my mind, that's the ultimate win. The rewards and the trophies, like those are short term, those are great, and we want to win those things. Those definitely matter because you need to have motivation. But man, that internal inspiration, if you can highlight that and clarify that and then chase that down, that's fulfillment and purpose that you'll feel like you're winning every day.
Yeah. Purpose, you said it a number of times. I love that you said that. In business is extremely important. If you don't know your purpose, we both are business owners. If we don't have a purpose, we're in trouble. How important is purpose with athletics and athletes?
I think it's incredibly important. Absolutely. I mean, it's again, going back to that motivation and that inspiration, it's being able to clarify why you do what you do. And a short example I'll give is was working with a program at high school level, and they had a individual on their team that was potentially going to be ineligible the following season, right? And so they were trying to identify, like, man, we keep telling him he's not going to play, he's not going to play. And after a conversation with them, what we uncovered was his real purpose of being on the team was more of a status of just being a part of the team. He wasn't motivated, and there was no purpose of actually, for the playing time essentially, and I think that through identifying that, keeping him on the team, we get another year to influence and develop and help him mature to see a deeper purpose, and I think that's part of the maturing process. But I think it's incredibly important, not only for the work you're putting in, but also the interactions you're having with people, right? What is your intent with holding that person accountable? What is your intent with the way you're communicating or how you're challenging them or the things that you're doing? Because that intent matters, much like purpose. Those two words are very interchangeable.
Yeah. And I'm 63. I played sports 40 years ago, high school and junior college, but I still have lessons today that I learned in sports. Talk about that with the athletes you work with and the teams. We'll talk about teams in a minute. These lessons they could take on with their life, even if they quit athletics down the road.
Yeah. I think, it's a great point, Steve. Like, that's one of the things that makes me most passionate about athletics is not only it is very enjoyable for me, growing up and playing sports and then being a former college coach and stuff and coaching at the high school level. Uh, but I love that you can connect the dots from the skills and the things that they experience and develop in athletics to life immediately, and I talk often like and coaches, great coaches do like we want you to live these things out in the weight room, in the gym, out on the field, but we want you to live it out in the classroom, in community, in your families. And I often say, like, I want to see you be great All American fathers and mothers, great All American business owners, employees, right? Teammates, long before I want you to see you be that All American athlete, right? Because those things are the things that are going to matter for a lifetime.
Very well said. I love what you just said because we lose sight of that, and especially your high school and college. You're so focused on your sport and being the best, and that's what you should be. But we forget the future. And you probably have the same thing. High school football. If I never would have played, my best friend who was my best man at my wedding, Mike Sullivan, never would have met him if I didn't play
Right.
football. Well, I might have, but the chances of meeting them and growing a relation 50 years later and still staying connected is powerful. I want to talk about.
Absolutely.
I love that you work with teams because I coaches that do individual, it's great because it's individual, but the teams and talk about like in business, culture is so important. How important is it with teams?
Oh, it's incredibly important. And, like I would say teams in business and teams in sports they function similarly, right? Like we have hopefully a common goal. We have shared norms, actions, and beliefs, right? We had shared attitudes. We each have individual roles and strengths that we're bringing to that. And what we're trying to do is get them to work together for us all to move in the same direction. And we would say that the same dysfunctions within business teams it can happen within sports teams as well. You know what I mean? And so culture is incredibly important. And I would even say, I know the word culture gets tossed around a lot. A good coach of mine's like, hey, I love culture, but at the end of the day, like I think taking it a step further and talking about environment, right? It's the
Yeah,
environment in which coaches set but then we live within and we either reinforce and enhance by our roles in what we do or we diminish it, right? And so when you say it that way, it's like you think through, am I enhancing an environment that is getting the best out of me and getting the best out of everybody else, And I think that when, again, going back to why it matters in athletics, is that because when we're able to do that at 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, and we see our influence and how we're enhancing an environment, now we have the skills, the strategies, and a lot of confidence to do that in our families, to do that in our businesses, to do that in our teams at the corporate setting. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And one thing that I've been saying a lot is like, I'm working with these athletes on the sports field or in the sports arena, but also I look at it as like we're corporate athletes too. right? There's still things that we're training, developing, and working within and striving for, which I think has helped really get people to wrap their head around this idea of corporate athlete, and that I still need to be progressing and training essentially to a higher goal.
Yeah. When you talk, and I love what you just said, I think of Allen Iverson and that when he was interviewed, like, practice, who needs practice? It's like what a bad apple in the bushel could destroy a whole team. And I don't know if that happened. It just came to mind. It's like, okay, why can't he practice, but everybody else has to practice?
Yep.
That's the environment. I love the word environment instead of culture. You nailed it.
Well, and when you start laying that in and you think of from a psychology standpoint and even a group's dynamic standpoint, when there's not blended egos, right? And to some degree, I think it's a continuum, but when you don't have these blended egos that we're all moving in the same direction, and there's also not shared risk, right? Like, oh, you don't have skin in the game when it comes to practice, but I do. Now you start seeing these dysfunctions arise. And that can happen at the corporate level as well, right? Like, hey, that guy's cutting out at 3, but everybody else is here at 5. And why do they get to do this? And all of a sudden you start getting these little bit of a dysfunction. We go, where's this coming from, right? Well, we don't have blended egos. We don't have that shared risk. And when we don't have some of those things, we're not cohesive in moving in the same direction as well as we could be.
Thank you for bridging that. I was going to do it. You read my mind. This happens in business just like sport. It's the same thing. You're right.
Yeah.
Or why does he
Yep.
get 4 weeks vacation? He's gone for a month and I'm working 80 hours. I mean, there's so many scenarios and that's got to be
Absolutely.
managed. What I love about your background is you coach in the NCAA, almost the top level. Of course, there's pro, but NCAA's, that's top athletics. What did you learn coaching the NCAA that's helping you now?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to coach at a Division II college in the Midwest, and I coached a primarily individual sport in tennis. And so I was really exposed coming into that of if you want to compete and compete at a high level, you're recruiting internationally. So not only are you taking these individuals that have played an individual sport and training, but you're also really converging and bringing together international and different cultures and things like that. And then you put it in a format where each flight, each match in doubles and things like that, it all matters, right? We're competing together and you have to kind of create the shared mentality and these like the shared risk, And so it was very informative trying to take different cultures and realizing too that psychology wise, and now I later on in life realized, oh, this is real life in terms of psychology, but you can't just push to push, right? And I think that's where a lot of leaders and coaches even are like, I'm the authority figure, I'm the decision maker, I'm going to push. The reality is that when that happens psychologically, we push back. And sometimes even physically, we push back. And so being able to lean in and listen and understand where they're coming from, I think that is vitally important for every leader. Because these people, if you want to really make the impact, if you want to really have impact, you have to be able to listen. And when people are listened to, they feel heard, obviously, but they also feel seen. And that deeply matters on a team.
Yeah, and I like that you crossed over to business again. I think this podcast should be doing business and sports with a servant's heart. Because there's a crossover, and I'm half kidding, but I probably should do one with sports. I love it. And you're making me think of Olympics are going on right now, the men's basketball team. There's Giannis, who's from a different country. He's a U.S. citizen. There are players that haven't played together and all that, where your environment is going to help you win, or you could lose, and they've lost before because of that. Now, strategies are important for professional organizations, especially sports. Do you help with strategy when it comes to teams and individuals?
Absolutely. I think, I try to take a principle-based approach because I know that no two teams are the same. And so one of the first things I talk about is how do we first create the environment? And we're using physiology and biochemistry principles to start building connections in psychological safety and moving to a place where we have alignment with, I call it spiritual alignment, but it's alignment of shared purpose and goals, right? And then you can start diving in and talking about the psychology and not only of individuals and their strengths and refining their attitudes and beliefs as they show up and how they align those with the team. But then you're talking about how do you collectively create that mentality together? You know what I mean? And then what I like to do after that is you start talking about how do you use like peak performance or flow science in neuroscience and start like tweaking and optimizing for peak performance. And so it's phases that we walk through, but again, like principle based, but a lot of the strategies I try to lean in and listen and then say, based on experience and science, let's experiment with this, or this is how I've seen this work and I'm seeing this, and let's try this out. I'm a big person of one size doesn't fit all, and we have to be able to experience and experiment and learn and then keep adapting and being flexible. I think that is a thing that I've seen even as a young business owner, right? I've never owned a business. I get into business and they're like, hey, do this, do this, do this. And you start doing it, you're like, that's not working for my business, and then you're going, well, what is there something wrong with me? It's like, no, what's the principle behind the reason why they're saying to do X, Y, and Z? And then how do you apply that principle? And when I've done that, I've seen success.
And it's interesting as you're talking, all the top athletes, Steph Curry and LeBron James, on and on. Tom Brady's they all have performance coaches. So I'm thinking if you're an athlete and you have an incredible skill set, why not grow that skill set by working with somebody like you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think like with each of those, I love that you brought that up because, Steph Curry is much different than LeBron James.
Mm-hmm.
And it is much different than Tom Brady, right? And it is much different than Kobe Bryant. And the thing is each of them and each person brings their own unique psychology and physiology and their mechanisms and or their experiences to it. And to lean in with somebody that can listen to that and understand that, help you see that yourself, and then be able to identify strategies to unlock that potential is vitally important. And I think that it's a journey at the end of the day. At a certain time with their skill level, maturity, and experience, they had more generalized, right? It was moving them. But then you get to this point where it's the little tweaks that give you that 0.5% better. And you keep going up and up and you keep moving towards, what I say is your greatness and living that out. And that's what each of them has done.
Yeah, that's powerful. You're right. They're all different. And you know what? All three of them are going to be Hall of Famers. I know they're not there yet, but they will be. And part of it is probably because they have performance coach. I would bet on that got them there. If they didn't have it, it may have slowed their growth down a lot. So how do you say your company name?
Yeah, Meraki.
Meraki Performance. So there's got to be a story why you call it Meraki.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And so Meraki means to do something with such love, focus, and intention that you leave a piece of yourself behind. And there's no English translation for it. It's actually a Greek word. And so, it was a word that I came across a while ago. And, as I was started exploring business and things like that, I'm like, what would I want that business name to be? And it just encapsulates everything that I want to do. And the impact that I want to create in this world. I believe deeply that there's greatness within everybody. And we get really enamored with athletic greatness because we can see it. It's on display, right? It's on stage. The reality is that we're not all great athletes, but we all have greatness within us. We all have that inherent uh, potential that we can live out. And I believe when you understand who you are, you uncover some of those things, but then you develop specific skills to be able to focus on that and take action on that you get to live that out. And I think that that's the greatest gift we can give this world. And I am I'm just super passionate about helping people do that.
Yeah, and that's a servant's heart. And I love that you said that because we all want to be Kobe Bryant. We'd love that. And I think a lot of people look at the money more than the success. But I love that you said we all can't be. I'm 5'8". I'll never be. Well, I can't say never, but my chances of being an NBA basketball player are minimal. So understanding with performance where I could go with my talents. And I think what you do is so powerful. You could talk to a parents and athlete in high school and go, hey, yeah, you could be a top 5 quarterback in the country, or hey, you're a Division II NAIA. Those are different divisions if you don't know. Quarterback, which is okay. You have greatness at that level. Is that what
100%.
performance is really about, where you could go?
Yeah, I think performance is more of, can you bring everything you can out of yourself, right? And so that's what it is for me. And if that's at Division 1 level, great. If that's in business, awesome. If that's being at home and leading your family well, yeah, let's do it. Right. And I think that's where it's almost this idea of like mental toughness to some degree too. I got in a good conversation, and somebody's like, well, I'm more mentally tough than blah, blah, blah. And it's like, hold on a second. Is the high school quarterback that ended up having his mom and dad, stay married together and do, put him in all these camps and be able to do this and support him, love him, and do this and made it to the Division 1 level? Like, is he more mentally tough than the kid that graduated high school with no parents, living on the streets or bouncing from foster home to foster home? Like, how can you even compare those two, right? And I get it. Like, we want to evaluate and compare and things like that. And there does need to be benchmarks. But I think that a lot where people go, well, oh man, I'm just like, maybe I'll go Division 3. I guess it's not as good as Division 1. I tell you what, I've worked with some really good NAI basketball teams that are like solid basketball teams, or some of those kids are going and playing pros overseas. And then you go and work with some Division 2 teams, and you're like, oh, that NAI school could give them a run for their money. And people don't understand that. And it's like, hey man, you make it to the college level and you're seeking that greatness out on that field. Like, you're there, man. You're on that level, and that's good. And it doesn't always equate to in terms of Division 1 or Division 2 and things like that.
Yeah, and that's that's same as in business. If you're doing $1 million a year or somebody's doing 100 million, you're both bringing value. Your performances are there. It's just a different mission, a purpose. That's all. It's just different purpose, right?
And I think we see that, and I don't want to discount the fact that, yes, like Division 1, there's some powerhouse. There are powerhouses in every sport, and like those kids are going pro, and they're putting more guys in the pros than others. Like I don't want to discount that at all. But the example I'll give, in what a lot of kids see, is they'll see somebody on social media and they're like, look at this huge house and this car and this and this that. And I've seen people like that, and I know people like that, and like they're making just over 6 figures. And then I know people that show nothing on social media, just like a couple pictures here and there, and they're making multi-millions. You know what I mean? And so like, it's sometimes you display one thing and what's really happening behind the scenes is much different, just like in business.
Yeah, the old mask, hiding behind that mask, or the mask you think you people want to see. We're kindred spirits so much. Even though I'm much older, I'm learning a lot from you. So I say, you old people out there like me, I'm not old, but if you're a little bit older, you can learn from anybody. I'm learning from you, Dan. We're coming to the end here. Real quick, what inspires you to leave coaching and start, your NCAA coaching, tennis, to do this coaching
Yeah.
program and jump into business as an entrepreneur and all the obstacles
Yeah.
involved?
Yeah, right. Some people say it's a little streaky crazy. But I would say the biggest thing was that I was young, and I realized that although I loved coaching, um, I was I was doing it to prove others wrong. Like, a lot of my childhood, that I was growing up, it was a lot of like, you can't do this, you can't do that, and so it was a lot of like chip on my shoulder, which, again, momentum or motivation. Like, it was good for a while. But I had 2 young boys, and we ended up making a run to the Final Four of the NCAA tournament. And it was a historic year for the school that I was working for. And I remember coming back on the plane and feeling really empty. And I still have a picture that I look at quite often. And we came into the parking lot when we got back to the university, and everybody was there welcoming us. And I saw my 2 boys, and at that time they were 5 and 4, I believe. And I remember, like, wow, there was 10 months of their life, I just didn't really see them that much. I didn't really get to connect with them like I wanted to. And that's the most important role for me. That's the most important job. And in that moment, my wife took a picture, but I was holding them and crying, and you couldn't see me. It was just my back. And so I would say that was the big piece, was like, anybody can be a coach. Maybe not anybody, but anybody could coach that team, right? Not everybody can be father in a husband to my family, and I needed to focus on that. And I think that was the big push, is that's my greatness. I was chasing, to your point, masks and things like that. I was chasing greatness for everybody to look at me and go, hey, check this out. Look what Dan's doing. And I'm great. but I realized that them and my family, my boys, my wife, that's where I needed to be great.
Well, you just, audience, listen to this over, because what he just said in 5 minutes is what purpose is all about. Left something you could have stayed at, probably been very successful at, but it wasn't your purpose, wasn't your desire. Your desire was family, and you had to do something different, and you're much happier. So I thank you so much. That is a great way to end this show. But we'll end with this question.
Yeah.
You are have reservations at a restaurant. You've got a reservation for 4. Obviously, you can occupy one of the chairs. In the other 3 chairs, dead or alive, who would be there and why? And most importantly, what food would you order?
Ooh, I would say one, the food is seafood. Like I'm
Okay.
all about seafood, all about seafood. Um, the first person I would pick is my grandfather. My grandfather was one of the greatest influences in my life. And it's funny when I reflect, like, where did this mindset come from? This relentless competitiveness, and it really came from him. He always told me, good, better, best. Never let it rest till the good is the better and the better is the best. And I just admired his life. He had 6 kids, owned businesses. My grandma never worked, and he did whatever he wanted. Like when he wanted to go buy property up north, he went and bought property up north. He wanted to learn how to fly, he flew. He was done with the job because he didn't like the environment there was. He just quit and got a new one, you know. He was just an absolute inspiration to me, and I think having a dinner with him again would mean the world to me. I think the other person, Kobe Bryant, um, and not just because he passed. I mean, just his competitive greatness. I want to be around greatness, and he is such a great example for our generation, our time right now, of just relentless pursuit of being the best version you can, and also giving something. He wanted to give something to basketball, and if you really are in tune with some of his interviews, it was about, yes, bringing out the best in him, but giving something to basketball, which I think is just absolutely incredible. And I would love to have a conversation with him. And then as a tennis guy, I think Roger Federer. I mean, he's been a guy that, watching his career and growing up watching him play tennis, and the mental strength that it took for him to stay at the top like he did, it was just incredible. And I think it was such a treat. And then I watched a documentary not that long ago about his retirement, and the fact that him and Nadal had such a great relationship, even though they were such close competitors. And I just admire that. I mean, both of them very humbly were like, I wouldn't be who I am today without you. You know what I mean? And I think he just gave so much to sports, and I think just in general to our society right now. If you look to him as somebody that also changed the trajectory of his entire career, because when he was in the juniors, he was a head case. He was breaking rackets and like a little John McEnroe, and he adjusted and changed to have the career that he did. I mean, it's just incredible.
Well, probably because he had a performance coach like what you're doing.
Could,
Want to throw that
could
out
be.
there. Big edify you, because you're doing awesome things. And yeah, the middle of that table, it's going to say humbleness. Like, I don't know your grandfather. I didn't know your grandfather, but those 2 athletes, when you said both of them, I'm going, Dan's humble, and you really are. So that's why I love that question. We kind of get the inner part. I want to do a shout out to, what's your grandfather's name?
Dan Pierce.
Dan Pierce. I know you're in
Yeah.
heaven, but shout out to you. I know you're listening to your grandson. Great things. I love those great stories. Now, how can people support you and reach out and find you?
Yeah, I would say I'm on all social media platforms at Meraki Perform. I have a website, merakiperform.com. Right now, I do a lot of face-to-face. I believe in high value, high quality relationships. So I know we're in a space of technology and being able to do things like this, but I enjoy getting in the room and interacting with people. I am also working on developing video courses, especially for athletes, and helping them navigate some mental barriers, and really develop that mental toughness and the mindset, things like that. So that's slowly coming out. And I would say, if you see things online from me, like, keep sharing it. I'm using my platforms much like you to serve others. And I want these athletes to know that there's resources out there that can equip them not only to experience success on the field, but also in life, and how that translates to business as well. And so, yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you, Dan. You're an incredible guest. This was an incredible show. I'm so fired up for people to see this because, again, it works in personal, business, sports. This goes across the board. It just happens to be sports is your focus. So thank you, because you've motivated, inspired, and educated a bunch of people today. Thank you so much. I also want to remind you my TV show, Together We Serve, every Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. And me and Dan, thank you so much for watching and listening to this podcast. Share it with others. Go to the YouTube channel, comment on it, go to the podcast, comment when it's out there. And I'll get those comments to Dan. If you need to connect with him, all the show notes will have all his information as well to reach out. Please do, especially if an athlete. If I did, I don't. He'd be one of the guys that definitely have them talk to. And with that being said, we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart and sports as well. We'll talk to you next week. See y'all.